The last 1000 days have been a true roller coaster for me that changed my life in a very positive way. I have to say it was one of the most incredible times of my life, and big changes happened in my health, my business, my relationship and my overall well-being. A little bit more than 1000 days ago, I went to my first Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, and ever since I've been meditating for at least 1 till 4 hours a day. Big synchronicities and opportunities happened, but also very weird and mystical things. And in this meditation, I'm gonna share all the things that happened. To start this video, I have to say that the last 3 years have just been an amazing ride that changed who I am in a very positive way. Perhaps if you've seen my other videos, you know that I went through 2 very big burnouts and depressions. And when I started with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, I was not doing so good yet, and half a year before, I still had a major fallback where I went back half in my depression. And I have to say that since I started with this work, I didn't have any of these fallbacks anymore, and it just helped me immensely, emotionally and health-wise. So I'm super grateful for the work that he brings out. I will divide this video in 4 parts. First, I will share how my overall well-being improved. Then I will share the different phases I went through. And then I will still share some weird and mystical things that I experienced and the opportunities that came into my life through his work. So I will first of all go into this change in my overall well-being, and I find this so important because it's such an incredibly big difference. As mentioned, I went through 2 very big burnouts and depressions, and when I started with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, I was actually still all the time very anxious. So I was having till that time every half year or so a fallback. I didn't have a lot of energy, and I was just always anxious. So I was thinking about if I did social things, can I handle it? If I worked, I thought, can I do it more than 1 or 2 hours? So there was just not a lot of energy and there was a lot of anxiety. And you cannot imagine how beautiful, amazing, and especially how touching it is when you come from such a dark place as a depression, and it really is the dark night of your soul, to a place where you feel real joy and pleasure and also love in life again and in the things that you do. And this is just very beautiful, and it completely changed. And perhaps you have seen my other video where I share my experiences of 365 days doing the Dr. Joe Dispenza breath for 30 till 90 minutes a day. And what I just feel on the inside is that I have this incredible self-love built up over the last 3 years, and also a deep inner peace that I always feel underneath the things that I do. And the last year was actually very challenging because my fiance, where I had a relationship with for 7 years, broke up. But even going through that pain and through that challenging period, I always still felt this inner peace underneath. And it didn't take the pain away, but I was closer to myself, and because of it, I could go through it on a more gentle way, I would say. And then another thing that really changed is just my energy level. So I could not really do anything, or not so much yet before I started with this work. And I didn't have so much energy. And at the moment, it completely changed, and I can work again, I can go to social activities again, and I really look forward to it as well. And that's just a complete change in my life quality. Now I will go through some of the phases that I went through in the last 3 years, and I would have to say that every year brought something new. And so after my first retreat in 2019, I committed myself of doing every day for 1 year at least, 1 meditation per day. And this first year I would describe as super exciting, but also very challenging. Because I have the feeling when you start with this work that deep sitting blocked things come to the surface that want to be seen. And I believe that Louise Hay explains this so well. So she says when you start doing intense spiritual work or self-development, that you're like this pen that is dirty and you put it on the stove with water in there and you start cooking it, and first all the dirt comes to the surface. And at one point it starts to get cleaner and cleaner and you can much better pinpoint what's left. And by me, it really was that case. So it's good to know when you start with this work that just some challenging things can come up, but every time that you overcome something, you start to become lighter and your life starts to become more fulfilled. At the same time, it was also a very exciting period because all these supernatural things started to happen. I, for instance, started to shake during my meditations, or I started to cough and yawn, and I never had that before with another meditation. And on my first retreat, I got this spontaneous healing where my cramped back that was already cramped for at least 5 to 10 years was completely relaxed after the meditation, and it has ever since been like that. And that's just sort of supernatural, I would say. And in the same time, my ex-partner and me, we started manifesting these really cool things. For instance, out of nothing, someone came to me and asked if I want to sell my houseboat. And during the same meditation, my ex-partner and me had the same business idea for an online course, and our big dream was to work anywhere in the world. And we made that course, and 3 months later we were working for the first time from a beach in Thailand, and that was just such an incredible moment. As mentioned, it was also very challenging that year, and what I just saw was that quite often during meditations, these old memories, trauma sometimes, but also a lot of things from my burnout time, came to the surface and wanted to be seen. And when I then sat through the meditation and I just let it come, maybe with an emotional release, I started to feel lighter and lighter. And so over the year, I actually started to see this huge change in myself. I started to feel differently. And I really got the feeling that this could make a really big difference in my life. And I have the feeling that when you go through these, and not every meditation has to be pleasant, right? Like it can be that just something comes up, but when you go through such a trauma and you release it, it can be that a complete emotional charge is gone and you just are not bothered anymore by the same things that you were bothered by in the past. The second phase I would describe as a period where I was getting healthier and healthier. My energy started to come back and I started to work a lot on vulnerability. And quite some people think that vulnerability is a weakness. But what I mean with it and how I see it is the complete opposite, and it can give you incredibly much inner strength. So when you do a lot of the meditation of Dr. Joe Dispenza, you will start feeling your emotions better. That means you will start feeling much more joy, laugh, but you also feel much better when there's a sadness or something else coming up. And because you feel that, you can much better speak your truth. You know much better what's good for you, so you will open up more to people, just say what you think. But you will also set easier boundaries and you will also say easier no. So your emotional range starts to widen. And what I mean with vulnerability is that you know what's good for you, that you can just open up to people, be honest to people and talk your truth. And because you can do that, people cannot really hurt you anymore because you know what's really good for you and you make good decisions for you, for your life. And because our emotional range, my emotional range started to widen up, I also started knowing much better what I wanted from my life. So in this period, my ex-partner and me also started Hands on Heart, our company that we're having, because we just really wanted to contribute to this world and just start to share the things that we are learning and help other people with this. During this period, my health became also better and better. And he has this meditation, Blessing of the Energy Centers. And I have the feeling that that one is just amazing for your health. By me, for instance, it really pulled me out of hide and flight and back more and more into relaxation. And I started feeling healthier and healthier. I could also, for the first time in years, work for a couple of months normal again. And that was just amazing. And energy-wise, it was also such a big difference. till that time, I was always thinking if I could do social things. And actually, since that year, I started doing more social things again. And that's also very good for your life quality, I have to say. So that was very nice. And if you are starting just now with his work, what we started doing back then and what made such a big difference was in every meditation, we tried to focus on joy and lightheartedness. And because of that, the process and doing his work became just much more joyful. So that would be my recommendation if you just start now, to always focus also on joy and lightheartedness. Then the last phase of this last year was a lot about getting into my own strength and finding incredible self-love and a deep inner peace. And on top, I did, as mentioned, the Breath of Joe Dispenza for 365 days. And there just happened a lot of very weird and mystical things, like outer body experiences, or going into an old trauma, or seeing mystical objects. And if you're interested in these experiences, have a look at that video, because it's pretty interesting what can happen with that breath. But so this year was very interesting because actually it was very challenging. My father got diagnosed with Alzheimer and also went backwards in it. And my fiance broke up after a 7-year relationship. But even with these painful things happening, I could always still feel this incredible self-love and this inner peace underneath. And it didn't take the pain away, right? So with the breakup, I still had to go through the pain and through the process. But I always felt this love for myself. And I never had that before. So that was just really, really beautiful, I would have to say. And sometimes we only see where we are standing when we go through a challenging period. But I also see that happens when you're doing his work. And for me, that has been a growth throughout the entire period, is that you start just living more and more in the present moment. And that means that you're just not so much busy anymore with negativity from the past or worries about the future. And in his meditations, you actually train that by going into nothing, into the blackness. And then you're in the present moment. And on top, there will just sometimes come things from the past up, and you work through them. And because you go through them and the emotional charge is gone, you will start feeling lighter, and in my experience, more fulfilled. So that is very beautiful. And another really amazing thing when you live in the present moment is that more synchronicities happen. And synchronicities are coincidences that we know actually that are no coincidence. For instance, you go to Thailand and out of the blue someone gives you a Thai travel book. Or I'm manifesting abundance and out of nothing someone asks if he can buy my houseboat. So all these things start happening more and more. So I have to say that I really contribute a big part of my health and well-being at the moment to the work that I did from him, and it is just actually amazing what all changed. When you do his work, it can happen that weird, new and mystical things happen. And so I will share a couple of things that happened during my meditations and the breath that I did. So right when I started with his work, I started to shake and cough a lot during his meditations. And that was something completely new for me. And as mentioned, I had that spontaneous healing. And during that healing, it was almost like a Thai massage. My arms were stretched out, my legs. And the most incredible thing was, it was very crowded around me, but they always landed somewhere where no one was laying. So that was pretty cool. And then during my breath, I quite often have it that I do a breath. And after doing a breath, I'm on a place I don't know, with people I don't know, but it's as real as looking here in the camera. And when I do then another breath, I'm back again in the room where I'm doing the breath. And I also have it sometimes that I see then these mystical objects like energy balls or triangle shapes or colors. Or even I felt one time this huge wind blowing in my face when there was no wind. And what I had the other day, and that was something new for me, was during my meditation, it was almost like my fingers would be plugged into an electricity socket and my entire body was under electricity, and it was actually very blissful. So it was very interesting what happened there, and it's always cool when something new happens, I have to say. And then the last thing what sometimes can happen is that just after the meditations, you're in such a blissful state that's almost like you see all the colors around you more sharp, more colorful, you smell everything more intense. So it's also very beautiful what sometimes can happen. Then in this last part, I will still share some of the opportunities that came into my life by doing his work and things that I attracted and manifested through the tools that he provided. So first of all, when we started in 2019, we used mind movies. And mind movies are these small movies where you put more or less your future in, what you want to attract into your life, with some music. And I watched it every day. I watched that mind movie, and I also was meditating and seeing my future in my meditations. And one of my big dreams was to work anywhere in the world. And as mentioned in this video, in a certain meditation, my ex-partner and me got this idea for an online course, both the same idea in the same meditation. We made this online course, we promoted it, and some months later we were working for the first time in Thailand from the beach, and we have actually worked in the last year on quite some different places, and it was incredibly beautiful to see how you can attract that. Another thing was also already what I mentioned with that houseboat. So I was attracting abundance in my life, and out of nothing I did actually that meditation, and 2 hours later someone called me and said, "Koen, do you want to sell your houseboat?" So that was for me a very clear sign to just let it go and sell it. And then another thing that I attracted was a car. I did pay for the car, but I had this image in my mind. It was quite an old car, and I was thinking, okay, it has to be this brand, it has to be that, in that price class. I was manifesting, and just at a certain point, I stepped into my old car, I look in front of me, and right in front of me is exactly the car that I was manifesting with 2 big sale signs on it, and it was actually at the lowest part of the money price that I had in my mind. So that was pretty cool, because what I find beautiful about manifesting or attracting things into your life is that you can really test the things or the spiritual laws that you learn. So you learn, for instance, that you attract things by getting into a certain frequency, and when you then see that it works, you get more and more confidence. And I do have to say, it worked very well. What I also see is that you attract a lot of small synchronicities and opportunities. So for instance, that you're in your head busy with a certain question and you walk right into a person that has the solution for you. Or as mentioned, you want to go to Thailand for a travel and someone gives you a Thai travel book. It's pretty cool when you start noticing and seeing all these small opportunities that happen. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please like my video, write a comment, or subscribe to my channel for future videos about spirituality and also about experiences with Joe Dispenza. If you're just starting with your meditations and your work of Joe Dispenza, I wish you just a lot of joy. And I wish you an amazing day, and I'm sending you all my love.